you can stop me. Okay, shall we start?
Sure.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so our course is titled as RFCE, which is Red Hat Certified Engineer. So this course contains another course, that is RFCSA, which is Red Hat Certified System Administrator. So for learning basics, so we have some basic chapters also here. Because many times we have our students from different platforms. Sometimes we have students from the fields which is not completely related to networking or administration. So for them we have some basics, like we have how to log into the machine and how to run the commands. Some very basics we have in this course, RSCSA. So after learning the basic things, we are going to learn about user management, partitions, installing software, and security, troubleshooting, troubleshooting. So support, you can say support also, troubleshooting. So like step by step, we are going from basics. So after completing, you are called as system administrator. Like as a system administrator, our roles are like installing the machine, installing the OS, operating system, create the users, install the packages, everything. So for the students who are already working somewhere and they're already into Linux, they know something about Linux. For them, it's like a like they are going to learn more things here. So this course is designed for freshers as well as for working people also. So in this course, we have two modules: system administration 1, system administration 2. So two modules we have here. So you can call two books also. Two modules, two books. So here in this module we have some basics, and then we have some advancements here. Advanced topics we are going to discuss in the second module. Okay, so this is about our course. So after learning these two modules, you will be able to do all the administrative tasks in Linux. Okay, so right. So let us see about. So let us see something about Linux. Okay. So before going to the first chapter, first topic in system administration 1, let us see what is Linux and why should we learn Linux. Because this discussion is very helpful in coming chapters. Okay. So why should we uh, learn Linux? So what is Linux actually? You can call it's a OS. Linux is an operating system, but many times we call it as a kernel. Linux is a kernel. So kernel is nothing but the main component of OS. The main part of the OS we call as a kernel. Because let us take example. You have Windows 7 machine, suppose. You have Windows 7 in which you have Notepad, Paint, WordPad, you have many tools. You can remove them by going to settings, you can remove them, and you can reboot the machine also. Because those are unwanted things. Suppose you feel like you don't want them, you can remove them by going to settings. You can still reboot your machine because those are the additional tools you have with your Windows machine. So, but there is something in system 32 folder. If you go to documents and settings, a directory, there are some important files. You can call that is the main part of the OS. You can call it as a kernel. So that file should not be deleted. So in our operating system, something is very important. The main part that is called kernel. Okay. So kernel plus additional tools. Additional tools. We are calling as OS, operating system. But in the case of Windows, we don't speak much about kernel actually. We don't speak. But in the case of kernel only, sorry, in the case of Linux only, many times we speak this word kernel. Because the reason is nobody customize Windows machines. Whatever additional tools we have, nobody is going to customize them. But in the case of Linux, we can customize in case of Linux. So whatever additional tools you want, you decide with your OS. So you can decide here. So in case of Linux, with kernel, whatever tools you want, you can decide. So this freedom we have with Linux operating system. Okay, so you can say the first reason, customize. So you can customize your operating system where it is not possible, it is not easy in case of Windows, you can't customize. But here, whatever tools you want, you can choose, you can customize. That's why Linux, you can use on any platform. So Linux works with any type of hardware because you can customize. Okay, so you can customize, so it works with any hardware, any hardware. Okay, customization, like let us see in detail what is actually customization. How can we customize the operating system so it supports all types of hardware? Because one of the main reasons are like, so like if you see IBM servers, so many times we see them in supercomputers, like they are with IBM hardware. So 94% of supercomputers working with Linux only because they choose the hardware. So the processors, memory, they decide what they want. In huge they decide, and according to that they want the operating system. But see, when you have any operating system like Windows, you see the requirements also. You see Windows 7 at 2 GB RAM, minimum requirements, suppose 32 GB hard drive. But what if you use more than 2 GB in case of Windows 7? That is not useful. Up to 2 GB is okay. Okay, but for Windows 7, if you have 60, so according to the requirement, we are going here. So in the same way, like when we have huge hardware setup, in case of Windows, we can't customize the operating system. Okay, so here we have the freedom of customization. Okay, and I can tell you here one more reason why customization is easy in case of Linux, because Linux is open source software. Open source software. You can change it according to your requirements. You can change it. Open source software. Okay. Suppose I have a software. I have software purchased. Okay, and my manager is asking that some options in my software, some options are not flexible. So we need more options here in the software. But actually, I can't change it. I need to contact the developer. I need to contact the developer. So because actually he is having the source code. So whatever he has given to us, that is object code. Object code. So like a setup file, he'll give us a setup file that we are going to install in our machine. That is object code. But the source code he designed, he will never give us. If you want to change the options, we need the source code here. So you contact the developer and he's going to change the source code. He'll recompile and he'll give a new setup file. A new setup file he'll give us. We need to reinstall, otherwise add as a patch. So this is not open source software. This is closed source, because always you can't customize anything here. You can't customize it. You have to always contact the developers, vendors. But in case of Linux, because it is a so open source software, so we have the source code with us. We have source code. So as per your requirement, you change the source code. You change the options, features, hardware support also you can change. We will not say that Linux for Linux we need 16 GB of RAM. We will not say that. We say according to the requirement we'll design the hardware. According to the requirement we'll design the software also. This freedom we have here in Linux, because we have the source code also. So this is one reason. So why should we go with Linux? Okay, and of course you know that Linux is very secure operating system. It's very secure operating system. So when we are working on enterprise level, security is a major thing we are going to consider, because the data value, whatever we store in the servers, are very huge and also very valuable data. So regular backups we have to take, and that data should be highly available, because the server is connected to public network. Always there is a risk with attacks, hackers. So the data must be secured. So Linux is a very secure operating system than Windows. So how Linux is very secure operating system than Windows? Because we have here firewall, firewall, TCP wrappers, TCP wrappers. So what is firewall, TCP wrappers? We are going to discuss in coming chapters. Firewall, TCP wrappers, and MAC, a security called MAC, a security called DAC, and a security called PAM. So like we have many layers of securities here, and it is not easy to cross all the layers and reach the data in case of Linux machines. And these layers are not, so these many layers we have, we don't have with Windows machines. So these many layers we don't have with Windows machines. With Linux machines only we have these many layers. You can call Linux OS as a onion with layers. We have n number of layers. So whatever we are discussing here, these are thoroughly tested by Red Hat. These layers are tested by Red Hat. So ready to implement. But if you go and search in the Google, like, so there are n number of security layers for Linux machines, still under development. Still under development. So in future, our Linux machines may be more secure. Okay, so like, because there are many people working for Linux tools, Linux development, there are many people working. So because it is source code, everybody can work here. Everybody can work. Like, so GNU, it's an organization who is working for Linux, and Apache is another organization. National Security of Agency. Uh, next, after this, NetFilter, Fedora. So these all people are working for Linux tools. They are developing Linux tools. And in case of Windows, you compare, Microsoft only is organization who is developing tools for Windows machines. So because Microsoft is a community, it's a proprietary software. So there's only one owner. In case of Microsoft, we have only one owner. He will decide. But it is a community based. So Linux is a community based OS. OS. Non-proprietary OS. Community based. So it is not owned by a single person. So there are many people working for Linux. Many people. These organizations and thousands of volunteers are working for Linux tools. So that's why it is possible to have many layers of securities. So second reason, security. So Linux is very secure operating system. Okay, so one thing is you can customize as per your requirements. Second thing is security. These are the major things. Okay, so any queries here? Okay, so I'll continue. Okay, so after security, let us see support. Because when you are using a software, sometimes we need support also. So I may get issues because suppose it is a new software. I'll get the issues with the software. So I need support. So we have very good support with Linux machines because we have admins here ready. There are many certified people who are working as admins here, and also a lot of support we have from Red Hat and other organizations. We have forums also. Like if you see these years, we have a number of forums who post queries and who get answers. The answers are tested by Red Hat actually. Okay, so we have a lot of support also. So we have admins because Red Hat is into training also. Red Hat is into training also. We have Red Hat administrators. Okay, and Red Hat actually in the website we have forums where you can post the queries, whatever you have issues, you can post and you can get the reply also. So we have very good support. So these are the things why we prefer Linux machines, Linux operating system. Okay, so let me say um, suppose this is my hardware, newly purchased hardware, could be a laptop or desktop or server machine. So on top of it, the first software we are installing is the operating system, OS. On top of the hardware, the first software we are installing OS because we are going completely command line. We are going completely command line. We need interpreter here. In our case, we need interpreter. Like whatever commands we type, those are in human readable format in English. They are in English actually. So most of these all the commands are designed by US people only mostly. So all the commands are in English. Those should be converted into machine language so that the OS can understand. So we need one interpreter here. So whatever we type the commands are interpreted by this interpreter. So on top of hardware, we have the OS, Linux. On top of it, we need the interpreter also. Okay. So on top of the interpreter, the user is going to execute the commands. So this is our OS architecture. Okay. So the user is here, and the user can access the hardware. Like the user can create a partition. The user can check the RAM availability, CPU availability with the help of OS. And he can instruct the OS with the help of interpreter. So we can say we have a mediator between OS user, that is interpreter, which converts the English language commands to machine language. So these interpreters, there are a number of interpreters. Shell, uh, shell you can call sh also, simply shell, bash. These are the program names. So we can download, or actually these are ready with OS also, CSH, KSH. So these are the interpreters available. So among them, as of now, we are using this one. This interpreter we are using now, bash. So bash stands for born again shell. So which is default in Linux. So this bash is default in Linux. Okay. So I have opened already a terminal, you can see here, which I am typing here. So this one I have actually accessed applications. So applications under which we have favorites and have access the terminal. So where we can execute the commands. So this is the terminal you can call. You can call this a terminal or a program. It's a program. It's a command line interface, or it's also a bash. It's also a bash because we have already installed bash. That's why we can access this terminal. So this is the place where we start executing commands. So this is my command line, okay, where I start executing commands. So because actually in the very first chapter only we are discussing about commands. So we should know where we have to execute the commands. So how the commands are interpreted, we should know. So this is the place where we have to execute the commands. So this is because of the program bash we are able to access. So you can ask me one question, like why we are using bash only. So why should not we use sh, csh and ksh? So why we are using bourne again shell as our default shell? Because we have some features here. Because we have features with bash. Very useful features we have. The features are like command fill feature. Command fill feature. Because in Linux, we have n number of commands. We have n number of commands with Linux. It's not easy for anybody to remember all the commands. Like if you are working as a Linux admin, suppose, and you have been assigned a task. So you are regularly working on one service only. So you remember only those commands. So because after working for months, sometimes years, you may remember only those commands on which you are working, but you may not remember all the Linux commands, tools. When we need to again recollect, when you have a new task assigned to you, we need to recollect the commands. So this is not easy to remember all the commands by, like, nobody can remember. That's why this feature is very useful, command fill feature. So you don't type the entire command. So you don't type the full complete command. You just start the command. It will fill the remaining letters. So I'll take one example for this. Okay. So there is a command called system config printer to configure a printer. This is the command. So, so without manually typing this command, let me try. So after coming to SYST, just I pressed tab button on the keyboard. Tab button on the keyboard. Just a hyphen, again tab button. Again P, tab button. So you don't need to type. So it is not easy to remember the spellings also. So it is not easy to type the entire command. Some lengthy commands we have in this case. So command fill feature is very useful. So this is there with bash command fill. Suppose if I forget the command completely, suppose I remember only starting few letters S Y S, I know, then you can say 2 times tab, 2 times tab. So you can list out all the possible commands here, starting with SYS. So these are the possible commands. Like you can see, okay, this is my command. So even I don't remember the spellings, I remember only few starting letters I remember. I can see, list out the possible commands here. So in case of command fill feature, we need to use a single tab or double tab. So double tab will list out the possible commands here. So this is very useful. So most of the times we are not going to remember the commands. So we'll go with concept. So we'll try to understand the concept. So why we are doing this? So like when any topic we take, first we'll discuss why part. So why should we do this chapter, and what is the need of doing this? What is the advantage of doing this? Let us discuss. And after discussing the theory part, I will demonstrate. I will do practically whatever we discuss. Practically, will see the output. Uh, and after practically doing that, next thing is your practice. Okay, you practice whatever we discuss, and after practicing, you next day you can ask me if you get any issues. So these three things, so we are going to do. Okay, fine. Okay, so command field feature is very useful, and path fill. So we have one more feature, that is path fill. So like many times we are going to access the files which are in different locations. So I am going to use here cd command. So cd uh, change directory to go to any location. We are going to use this command cd, because as a system admin, daily we need to open many configuration files. So they are in different locations. Of course, as of now, at this point, we are not comfortable with the file system. So we don't know actually the directory structure. We don't know like what folder comes in which location. We don't know. But let me try this command. As of now, we don't know etc. Also. Let us discuss them. So tomorrow we'll see the file system hierarchy. So tomorrow we'll discuss what is this etc folder. Okay. Just for example, I am doing this etc sysconfig. So it's a folder actually. So here also we can use double tap. So it will list out the possible folders with this name, sysc. Okay, I'm choosing this one, sysconfig. Because we are going completely command line, it is not easy to remember the paths. So it is not easy to remember etc sysconfig network scripts. It's not easy. But in case of Windows, you open My Computer first, go to D drive, see what folders are there, choose one folder by mouse clicks. But here, it's not like that. You need to remember this location. At least if tabs work, at least. So after coming to etc directory, so sys double tap, it will show that under etc, there are three folders starting with sys. So sysconfig one folder is there, sysctl one folder is there, systemd one folder is there. So let us say systemd, systemd. Just a tab button here. So these tabs and double taps are useful here. You can, it's like you browse the file system. You see what is there in this folder and you select one folder. So this is possible. So these are two very important useful features we have with Bash. Okay. So any queries here? Okay. So you can ask me any queries if you have. Okay. Okay. So we have one more feature here, Bash files. This is one more feature, Bash files. So .bash profile and .bash rc, .bash history, .bash logout. So these files come with Bash only. Only with Bash these files are available. The advantage of these Bash files are, so this file you can use as login file. You can use as login file. So usually like when I log into my machine, I'll check my date. I'll check my mails. I'll check if the service is running or not. I will check. This is actually what I do when I log into the machine. So what you can do is you can automate these tasks by saving them in this file. So whatever task you do regularly after you log in, that you can save in this file. So immediately when you log in, these three commands will run automatically. It will show what is the date. It will show if we get any mail. It will show if the service is running or not. You don't need to run the commands again and again. When you log in, automatically these commands automatically will run if you save them in this file. Suppose in case after you log in you want Firefox to open automatically, mention it in this file. Okay, whatever apps you want automatically to start, whatever things to be done automatically, you can save in this bash file. It is called login file. So what you want to do at the time of login? Okay, of course we are not going to do now. So practically we'll do this one after discussing few things, because we should know how to open this file first of all, and how to write the data, save the data. So we need some basic things to discuss before giving entries in this file. We need more discussion. So that's why as of now I'm not doing that. Okay, dot bash rc, you can call it as the aliases file, because just now we observed the lengthy commands. So system config printer is a lengthy command, because when you're working with repetitive tasks, you feel like these commands are very lengthy. So you can give them aliases. So short names you can give. Okay, if you just run that short name, it will run that complete command. Okay, so for that you can use this file dot bash rc. Okay, so for any command you use frequently, give them alias names in this file. And this file will save history of commands. So whatever commands you run, uh, it will remember those commands. So like you can check which user executed what commands. You can see by checking this file. So all the commands we run saved in this file. So it will remember up to 1,000 commands. It will remember up to 1,000 commands. It will remember. It's not like after 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. Like it is not depending on the time. So after years also, the commands will not go from this file. Actually after years also the commands will be there, but it can remember only 1,000 commands. So 1,000 commands we need. But
Excuse me,
we,
sir.
yeah, sure.
Sir, those 1,000 can be repeated or unique command?
Actually repeated. If the user repeats the command, it will show repeatedly. Okay, 1,000 commands, but it is customizable. You can change it to above 1,000, like you can make it 2,000 also. It is customizable, this number. And this is logout file. So what you want to do at the time of logout? See, like when I log out my session, I need to take a backup. I need to send a mail to my manager. I'm leaving for the day. So these things actually I do every time, every day. When I log out my server, my session, I'll back up my files, I'll send a mail, I'll quit. So what you can do is these two tasks you can write in this file. These two tasks you can write in this file. Just to say log out, just to say log out, it will do backup automatically. It will send a mail to the particular user automatically. This is like you automate the things. So what you want to do at the time of login, what you want to do at the time of logout, what commands you want to execute simply. So for that, these are very useful. Okay, so these advantages we have with bash. So easily we can work so with the help of bash. Okay, so let us execute some commands today. We'll execute some basic commands today. So let me clear the screen. Clear, right? So when I open this terminal, it is showing some information here. It is showing information like what is my name. So I logged in as root. So my name is root here, and I am working at desktop 2. I am working in this machine, and tilde, this symbol means that we are working in home directory. This user is working in the home directory, and hash symbol means he is an admin. He is administrator. Okay, so You can ask me one question. Like I know that my name is root. I know that. So when I am working uh, as a normal employee or administrator, when I log in with my name, why? What is the importance of showing my name again here? Because we know our names. If you log in with a name called John, your name will come as John here. So what is the importance of this? What is the use of this? Because as an administrator, we need to work with many accounts. You log in as root here. In one more terminal, you log in as John, log in as Mary, because you are testing the user privileges you are testing as administrator. If the user is having any issues, you need to log in with that account and check the issues. So one terminal you are working as a root. In another terminal, you may work as a different user. So we need that clarification we need. So that's why this is very important. So we need to know with which account we are working presently. And also I'm working in desktop 2 machine. So this is also very important because we will log in with many servers simultaneously. We'll be working with many servers. You connect remotely to the servers. So we need this information also to which server I have connected desktop. Okay, and in which directory you are working. You are working as a privileged user, administrator, hash. So you may get the same information by these commands. Who am I? So it will show your name. Who am I? Host name. So complete machine name it will show. Print working directory or present working directory / root. So presently I am working in this location /. So what is / we'll discuss tomorrow / and this directory structure we'll discuss tomorrow. And okay, so if I switch to another account, suppose switch su. So this command I am using to switch to another account. So there is an account already created in this machine, student. So let me switch to that account. Okay, so I become now student. So now my name is student. I'm working in the same machine. And again, it is showing here a tilde symbol. But let me check what PWD shows. It shows a different result. So what we understand, PWD when you're working as root, PWD when you're working as a student user is not showing the same results. It means that the home directory of root, the home directory of student are different. Okay, I'm working as student in the same machine. In home directory of student we are working, and he is a non-privileged user, normal user, dollar symbol. Okay, so if student try to go to any location like /etc, just now we discussed above, etc folder, he is going to the etc folder, then it will show that he is in etc directory presently. So change directory /etc, he is going to another directory here. So when he say just cd enter, he'll come back to home. To come back to home, just cd. Okay, and to exit from this account, exit, log out the session. Done. So we are back to root account. So who am I? It will show my account name, login name, and PWD. So it's a print working directory, or present working directory, and we have used where am I? Host name. So this is to check your machine name. To check machine name. This command we can use, and su to switch user. Switch user to switch to another account. Okay, so you can get information about the commands by this what is, who am I. So here we have something like what is. It will show what is the need of this command. Who am I? Print effective user ID. What is PWD? So PWD means print name of the current working directory, something like. So if I don't know anything about this command, host name, so I'll confirm with this command. What is host name? So what is host name? It will show here. Show or set the whole system's host name, local host name configuration pipeline. Okay. So about any command, we can get the help here with what is cd. Change the working directory. You can switch to another directory. Okay, so today we observed very simple commands, and tomorrow we'll observe file system hierarchy. So with the help of file system hierarchy, we'll try to understand the file system structure, what is slash and what is slash etc, slash home, slash student. We observed these folders today. Slash root also we observed. Okay, so we'll discuss in detail about these locations and this directory structure we'll discuss tomorrow. So the first chapter is a very introductory chapter, and we observe here how to open the terminal, how to execute the commands. But still we will try to understand more things about commands. So tomorrow we'll discuss. So what is the command also we'll discuss tomorrow. So today we observe how to execute the command. Tomorrow we'll see what is the command actually. So where the commands are stored, in which location the commands are saved, that we'll see tomorrow. Okay, so please tell me if you have any queries here, and like if I'm going fast or slow, you can suggest me. Like, is it okay, Murli?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Okay, fine. Shashwant?
What is the difference between Ubuntu and Print Linux? What is the difference between the Red Hat and
Yes,
Ubuntu?
yes, Shashwant. So this is very important to know the difference between the versions, and before.
CentOS.
Yes, yes, yes. So for that, actually, we should discuss about the story of Linux machine, Linux operating system. Actually, Unix was there. It is there from 1970 itself. Unix is there, which is very secured operating system, but it is not free. It's not free operating system. Very secured. So GNU is the organization uh, who want to develop Unix-like machines. Unix-like OS. GNU want to develop. So that's why in 1983 they started this organization, GNU organization. They started in 1983. They developed some tools, and the kernel, which is actually the main part of the OS, is developed by Linus Torvalds. So Linus Torvalds developed kernel and the tools developed by GNU. So for the first time, GNU and Linus, with the help of GNU and Linus, GNU Linux was introduced in 1991. First time we got Linux, which is named as GNU Linux in 1991. So when it is released under GPL license agreement. GPL license agreement. So what is GPL license agreement? OS is free. OS is free. Free means free to use, free to download, and free to distribute. So if you have the CD, you can copy to your friends also, give it to your friends, distribute to your friends. Free to redistribute. Redistribute means you modify the OS. As we discussed, it is an open source software, Linux. you can modify, customize it. So after customizing, it is called as a redistribution. So we can customize, redistribute. These are all the freedoms we have with GPL license agreement. Okay, so GPL stands for GNU's license agreement. Sorry, public license. GPL stands for GNU's public license. Okay. So because of these freedoms, because anybody can download the OS and anybody can modify it, Red Hat, Mandriva, Sun Microsystems, and Fedora, and Ubuntu. So,
CentOS?
yeah, CentOS also. So, who is actually Red Hat? Who is Mandriva? Who is Sun Microsystems? These are actually uh, organizations. Red Hat organization, Mandriva organization. So what these people did is they downloaded this GNU Linux because it is free. They downloaded. After downloading, they have customized it, modified it. After modifying, they kept the brand names: Red Hat Enterprise Linux.
So all the commands will be same in all the flavors.
No, we can't say that all the commands will be same. Mostly they are same. Most of the commands are same. And this file system structure is same with every distribution, / etc. The file system structure is same. Where the configuration files are stored, where the database files are stored, where the binary files are stored, that structure is same. And differences, because they are customized. They added some tools, they removed some tools. So that's why some commands which are working in Red Hat OS may not work with Mandriva. Some commands which are working with Mandriva may not work with Red Hat, but no problem, because still you can manage by going to different locations. You can open the configuration files. If I know Red Hat Linux, I can handle Mandriva systems because I know what type of files are there, where they are stored. If you know the file system, administration is easy. No problem. If one command is not working, you can manage with another command. The file system is same. Okay, for example, you see in C drive we have document settings, system32 folder, and this is common with Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 10. The differences are like Windows 10 you have more features, more tools. Windows 8 you have limited. Whatever tools you may see in Windows 7 and you may not see Windows in Windows 8. So you can say those are the differences. Some tools are different, features are different, but the file system is same. Because as an administrator, we work with files many times. That's why if you know Red Hat Linux, definitely we can work with any OS. Okay, Yashwant?
Yeah, okay, sir.
Okay, fine.
So what are the requirements for the Linux to install operating system?
Uh,
Any requirement?
uh, are you going to install on the Oracle VirtualBox?
No, VMware.
Okay, fine. So if you're working with VMware, 1 GB RAM is enough, and
1 GB.
8 GB of storage is enough for installing the OS.
Because in my laptop I have 4 GB RAM, 1 TB hard disk.
Sure, you can definitely install. No problem.
It will be run.
Yeah, 1 GB is enough for this machine. Like when you go to VMware, when you start installing the Linux machine, you allocate 1 GB RAM only. 1 GB RAM only you give for this machine. And the 3 GB will be with your base machine.
I should give the partition for all this. I should select the option automatic.
In VMware, everything is automatic actually. In VMware, if you go with Oracle VirtualBox, it will ask you manually to select the partition, select the RAM. But in VMware, everything is automatic.
Okay.
You don't need to mention anything there.
Okay.
No problem. Like if you get any issue there, just tell me. I'll help you installing that.
Okay.
Uh,
So your daily classes will be in the content wise or
yeah,
the command wise?
we'll go with content version. One by one, like whatever we have in this, that we'll follow the sequence.
Okay. Duration of the class 1 hour.
Yeah, actually 1 hour we are going to discuss beginning days, but after, because in the beginning days we have basic, after that we will make it 1.5 hours.
Okay.
Is there anything else you would like to ask me, Ashwin?
No, it's okay. Complete.
Okay. So, Murli, is it okay? Like any queries you have? I think it's not there. Okay. Any queries, Risha?
No, I'm okay.
Okay. What about you, Vijayvardhan? Is it clear?
Yeah, okay, sir, it's clear.
Okay. Okay. Okay, fine. Then thanks for joining, and we'll connect tomorrow again, 8 p.m.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.